Welcome, everyone, to the third episode of ODPi Member Conversations, where we talk with some of our wonderful ODPi member companies around what they're doing in big data, the value they see ODPi bringing to the table, and just helping us better get to know them and how they're seeing standardization and community as an important part of driving the big data and Hadoop world. I'm pleased to be joined by Gagan Brahmi today. He's a senior solution architect for zData. zData is one of our wonderful member companies here, and they have a very unique perspective on Hadoop in the big data industry, and so we're really excited to talk with them. Thank you, Gagan, for joining us.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Great. Well, let's just dig right into things here. Tell us a bit more about your company and your role within zData.
Sure. So zData, we provide basically the big data consulting and solutions for both commercial and enterprise corporations. Our team includes all the experts in all different areas, right from the software engineers to data scientists. At the same time, we work with all the major top hardware and software providers, providing on-site as well as off-site consulting, managed services, trainings, as well as long-term scalable data solutions. Our sole focus is providing available and stable big data platforms, be it on-prem or in the cloud. And we also work in supporting and implementing the new cloud-native applications, which allows companies, decision makers to quickly and affordably perform complex analysis of maybe terabytes of data, which in turn accelerates and improves the business decisions. There was a recent news that I'd like to share to the community is we were recently acquired by Atos, which is a global leader in IT services. And Atos continues their investment and expansion in the US with plans to accelerate and foster zData Inc. as a wholly owned subsidiary. And Atos will also be providing zData with critical and complementary resources to accelerate their services and software capabilities in IoT, big data, and cloud.
Well, great. That's exciting news, and congratulations. It's a huge milestone for a company like zData, and it certainly is also that reinforcement of the great work that you're doing to be recognized by a large global organization like that and brought within that fold.
Oh, that's absolutely correct. It's always pretty good to be recognized by a corporation of size of Atos, and especially being one of the giants, and they recognizing our capabilities and trusting the team that we have built around and be working with various different clients. So what this really would provide zData is a broader reach to the community and a better collaboration going out. So that's what we're looking forward to future. As far as my role goes in zData, I am a big data consultant and solutions architect here at zData. And as a solutions architect, I am focused on providing enterprise architecture, managed services, and advanced consulting to enterprise corporations, with my specific emphasis being on Hadoop distributions and cloud migrations. Over the years, I've worked with a number of different clients to help them derive value out of their data.
Well, fantastic. And that's a great segue into topic 2 here. You talked about data and the huge trend that we've seen, and I think just everybody's seen, is unstructured data. I mean, that is now the high percentage of the world's data. And Hadoop is obviously a tool that's really well positioned to deal with any data, but very specifically, it's unstructured data. Since you're a consultant, you're out of the field, you're talking with enterprises. Tell us a little bit about some of the unique challenges that you're seeing enterprise face when running Hadoop deployments.
I mean, you were spot on right there, and you can see a lot of numbers around over different estimates or guesstimates being floating around. Like 70% of the world's data is unstructured. Some say 60%, but the bottom line is a lot of data is unstructured, and that's where the first challenge comes in that I see being day in and day out is the data challenge. So we all know that Hadoop has been used for analysis of data, and be it structured, unstructured, from various different sources. There are many tools and applications which are designed from ground up, keeping in mind that Hadoop and unstructured data is what we're going to process. And also some of the traditional BI tools that have been working, they have been adding to cupping up, matching with those capabilities of dealing with unstructured data. Now, it all works fine. Most of these tools more or less try to form the structure around this data, and this is specifically for the traditional data. From a higher level, the biggest challenge I see when dealing with these kind of issues is the data quality, the data categorization, and combining the structured data with the unstructured data. That's one of the big challenges that many organizations have been dealing with. There are some specific use cases where you can work great without any schema or structure, but then there are some traditional BI tools where you're forced to get some structure around it. That's one of the challenges I see.
No, I couldn't agree more. I mean, garbage in, garbage out has been a huge challenge with any of us in the data business for the last 30 or more years. And I don't think that's something that every organization has to grapple with. I think the interesting thing that unstructured data brings into this is before, where there was often a huge exercise of going from unstructured to structured before processing happens. Now that's happening on the fly, and when you have wrinkles in the data, all of a sudden that gets magnified and blown up, and can potentially throw off how you're calculating data, the analysis, the insights you're doing, and there's some red flags, and I think that's an area where we could potentially see a good amount of investing happen. Would you agree with that?
I would totally agree with that, and it's fascinating to hear that how the landscape has changed over the years, right? So first we had to make sure that the data is structured, and then we can save or store the data. Hadoop provides you the ability, don't worry about the structure, just throw the data in. We'll worry about the structure later. But that worrying or setting up a structure or schema on read, that puts up a significant amount of time for the business team to actually run around and make sure that the data is all in good shape. Once it's that's ready, then we can go and run all the analytics. But there's a considerable amount of time being spent there, and I totally agree with you. There is still a lot of work to be put in to ensure that the data quality is improved, maybe as fast as possible. There are still some tools available that you can do, maybe some real-time data filtering, but still a lot of scope for improvement there.
Definitely. And this is a great movement into topic 3 here. As an enterprise is grappling with the issues which you were just talking about and really eloquently laid out, and data quality and management and whatnot, how does an enterprise derive the maximum value out of that Hadoop cluster? What are the tools you're seeing? What are the best practices for ensuring that happens?
Well, the first, and this is like a multi-step things that I like to mention. But the first and foremost is over the years there has been people come from traditional background who's been using data systems for a long time. Now, the Hadoop deployment use cases differ between a number of different enterprises, and so does its challenges. So every use case has their own challenges. But the common things that you should be worrying about is having the right perception when you're working on a Hadoop cluster. Make sure that you understand the scale of the volume of the data, and make sure that you understand the velocity of the data. Now, having the right perception is something that I would come back to my initial words that I said. If most of the users in your team comes from a traditional data system, they tend to have a different mindsets towards managing a Hadoop cluster, because now you're talking about a distributed system which does not work the same way as your traditional data systems. You need to have a different thought process in that, and we have to understand that it's a kind of data that we are dealing with. It's no more just a structured data. Now we have a semi-structured, we have unstructured thrown in, and then you have to think a little out of the box to understand how you're going to deal with this data. That's the first thing that I say. I mentioned the volumes and the velocity that is consistent there. And the last, one of the important one is setting the right expectations. Now, the processing scale of Hadoop provides a significant processing advantage in comparison to the traditional data systems. But then there are some trade-offs, especially in the enterprise readiness, which many of us are ready to accept it today. But there has been, I have to agree that there have been significant improvements in this area, but there are still a lot of improvements that can go in. But considering the power the platform offers you, these limitations can really be accepted by a lot of enterprises today, and they are being accepted. Like many organizations are moving and are adopting Hadoop with open arms, and they are using the existing enterprise capabilities, and that's great news. Having said that, there's one very good saying that I've been reading around in relation to Hadoop is an elephant can't jump, but it can carry heavy loads. But that landscape is changing quite drastically. So traditionally, Hadoop had its initial success in batch analytic workflows. Now the landscape is changing drastically, that today Hadoop has the ability to run real-time and interactive applications. So when we are dealing with the tools to make sure that we derive the maximum value out of our existing systems, we have to keep an eye on all the tools available. Like, oh, the biggest question the user would have is like, I've been running OLTP on my previous systems. Can I do that? Well, you could not have been able to do that successfully maybe 3 or 4 years earlier, but today you have the ability that you can do it. That you have some tools which will provide you OLTP capabilities. HBase, for instance, has grown tremendously, and that provides you a lot of OLTP capabilities that you can run around with combinations of several different solutions available, not just in Hadoop ecosystem, but several tools which are sitting outside Hadoop ecosystem, which can be complementary to Hadoop altogether.
Yeah, it's so interesting, and I'm glad you brought up the point about the early area. Hadoop was viewed in batch processing, and now it's starting to get into the real time space. What I've seen here of this ecosystem, and maybe even more so, maybe in the last 2 to 3 years, is the shift from Hadoop being a data processing strategy, in the sense that it's just another tool in the arsenal, but instead it's sort of the centerpiece of how I'm approaching data, which I think kind of changes the entire landscape of how you're thinking about it, because you're able to centralize. You're for one, you're able to centralize a little bit of your strategies within there. Then I think too, then you're able to pick the right tool for the job as you're looking at it, and mix and match the right projects, the right third-party applications, and with the knowing that there's a tool set that you can build. This is a tool set and platform you can build upon to achieve the outcomes you're coming from.
I mean, that's absolutely correct. And speaking of tools and continuing on the same topic, a little deep discussion out there would be, you talked about tools, and that gives me to another area that I've seen a lot of challenges happening is not just, so Hadoop has been data processing system, or we can say has been a big data storage system that we can use, and unlimited storage for relatively low price on an expensive piece of hardware. And that's what we call to become a data lake. Now, data lake concept has been good, has been great, has been working exceptionally well, where you just get all the piece of data in, don't worry about it, and then process later. But over the period of time, if you do not have right set of tools or right set of governance around the data, in no time your data lake would turn into a data swamp, and then your users would struggle to find the right piece of data. So getting the right governance around your data in the data lake is one of the important pieces of advice that I give to all of our clients, and make sure you're using the right strategies surrounding. And not to forget the multi-tenancy coming into picture. Then you have to worry about, it's like, oh, is there right security? Can the other team, is my data sensitive? and it is secure, and the other team is not able to access it, I have to make sure. So that comes down to the right security tools to make sure that you're keeping your data safe. It's not being misused by any other team.
That is, that's really fantastic insight, and it's one of the things that I've thought about as the data lake topic has been, it's really sort of the centerpiece of a lot of product presentations, and a lot of the focus is, hey, just get the data in Hadoop somehow and hope for the best. But the interesting anti-pattern that I see sort of forming out there is, the goal that people are striving towards is data lake, but what ends up happening is, like you described, data swamp, or even a worse situation is data ponds, where you have about 16 of these things just sitting out here because exactly the problem that you're running into. There's the data governance, the data security rules are just so all over the place that in order for IT to take this up to a production level, they end up just splintering off the cluster and making copies and all of these things, and it's highly inefficient. And it's a great sort of segue into the fourth topic as well. From an ODPi perspective, this is a huge thing we're seeing out there, and we're actually getting ready to put out a white paper here, and a nice campaign around this here in the coming weeks. Where we see enterprise production as the area of focus. This is really where the challenge hits it. It's easy to sort of get in the door. There's lots of folks doing POCs. There's lots of folks doing departmental plays. There's lots of pilots going on. But there's where this rubber hits the road of when you really want to get this into production, just like you'd get your ERP system or something like this. There's a bit of a glass ceiling that's forming. And so from you're talking with customers all the time. You're in the field, and as what you've seen what ODPi is doing, what do you feel the role that ODPi can play in helping enterprises in this Hadoop world?
So the first and foremost thing that ODPi has done is it's provided a structure or compliance around the Hadoop distributions. Now, previously the traditional landscape was such that if I'm an application developer and I'm trying to design an application around a Hadoop component, I have to, my job is not just to design the application. My job also involves to worry about, what vendor I'm going to run on. It's going to be vendor X or vendor Y. What version is vendor Y running and what version is vendor X running? Is my feature going to work in the versions that they provide? Is my tool going to perform, or is there any known bugs? Well, you have a number of things to worry about. What ODPi brings to the table is that a vendor is ODPi compliant, a distribution is ODPi compliant, and that's all you should be knowing, because it gives you a benchmark that these are the versions and these are the components that will be available in the distributions, and I just have to worry about designing my application and developing my application and just leave the other piece of overheads out and just not worry about it. That's one of the great contributions that we are seeing out in the field today. At the same time, the other important part that you were talking about is the practices. I think it will be more towards the practices and making sure what are the right ways to come up with, for instance, data lake. So these are the practices. These are the checklists you should do 1, 2, 3, and that's how you would be getting the most value out of your data lake. And this falls more towards the best practices or best practices or configurations to your cluster. So it's a great win for be it the vendors or for someone like us who go out in the field, talk to the clients, and at the end user who do not have to worry about the different available flavors out in the market today.
Yeah. Well, and I love to hear that feedback, because that echoes a lot of what I heard, and then it also sort of gets down into that next level here of, an end user is, they're already struggling at point one of just how to approach this concept of big data. How do they shift, from an EDW mindset and a traditional structured data mindset into processing real-time data, batch processing in the background, and that's not even scratching the surface of what AI and machine learning bring to the table. But just having an area, just having a standard, just having a base level of saying, hey, you as a CIO, you as a CISO, you as a CTO, you as a CDO, as you're looking at what are the pieces that you can confidently put investment in, the ODPi label, the ODPi endorsement, the certification compliance that comes with that, that just helps everybody. Irregardless of what camp you're in, irregardless of what vendors you choose to buy from, or what projects you put into production, just having that within there, gives you confidence that, hey, I am working with a vendor that's looking at the bigger picture, and really seeing to ensure that this ecosystem and this big data industry will continue to evolve in an open way, and the things that I am seeing as a vendor or as a user of this technology will continue to get folded back into the development, to really help it continue to evolve over time.
Oh, I can't agree with I can't agree any more than what you've said. That's totally true, that what ODPi is contributing to Hadoop, overall Hadoop, is absolutely great. And just so that we know that Hadoop is no longer like a 10 or 11-year-old landscape anymore. It's not anymore HDFS and MapReduce. It's much more than that. We have real-time processing. We have number of tools. You have your own custom tools that you can plug into Yarn and you can run it. That's what we are today. But think about bringing, like, if I am an end user, or if I'm a CIO or a CTO who's trying to make a decision, oh, there's this new tool that will work on my Hadoop cluster. How many questions do I have to ask myself? Like, are we using a Hadoop compatible Hadoop stack? Do we have to upgrade? What versions should we use? Will my existing resource manager and scheduler work? There's a lot of questions you have to ask. So that making sure that you are running a compatible version, that answers a lot of questions. Now that's just about the versioning. Now think about, I am moving from, like, there's so many efforts of duplication, like what kind of security should I wrap around? There's no standard. If I'm moving from one distribution to other distribution, I have to redo everything if I have a totally different security setup or totally different data governance setup. That's not how we should be doing. We should be doing far more better in Hadoop world. After 11 years, we should be moving towards that maturity where the end users and the decision makers do not have to go through this pain, to be precise.
Exactly. No, it's you're spot on with that. There's too much differentiation over commodity, and really turning a lot of that focus into end user value and flipping that equation around. The members that are part of ODPi, that's the future that they see. That's where they see this market needs to get to. And we're always thrilled to have folks like zData that share in that view and also talk that same story as they're going into customers. And it's a great opportunity to also move into topic 5 here. As you're helping enterprises, tell us what you're doing very specific as an organization to help enterprises get the maximum value from their big data.
Working with the clients as a team is something that is really important. Once you start working with the clients as a team and start sharing the knowledge, so over a period of time, we've learned a lot. There's a lot of interesting tips or secrets that we learned of the best practices from number of previous engagements. So we try to share all those information, but at the same time, training and providing a knowledge transfer and making sure that we are making the client capable to manage their own clusters is something that goes a long way to help the client be self-sufficient to manage their own Hadoop clusters. That is one of the keys that I've seen for success, and clients do appreciate that a lot. But at the same time, making sure that educating them of all the different decision-making patterns, understanding, asking the right questions when you're trying to putting a new application into Hadoop cluster, asking the right applications, setting the right expectations, and making sure that and everyone knows that there's not any good documentation or best practice available for security governance or data governance today, and many of the clients still are in the dilemma is, oh, how do I make sure that my new team or my member is or my new team member is doing the right thing? How do I make sure I've set up the right auditing? How do I see what commands were run? So there's a lot of security to be educated to the client, and helping them reach to that goal is a key that we've learned over the years of experience. And I've been dealing with that with a number of clients, and happy to see many of the customers able to manage those by themselves.
Well, that's great. I mean, I think more organizations being able to feel empowered to be in control of their own big data destiny, it really helps align with the bigger themes that you see out there around IT as a service, and really the shift that SaaS has sort of brought to the table here of getting this technology into more people's hands without all of the red tape and all of the hoops you'd have to jump through. I mean, I think I was just reading the newest Gartner report on BI and their Magic Quadrant for BI and analytics platforms, and the interesting stat that they had there at the very top is said through 2020 the number of citizen data scientists will grow 5 times faster than the number of data scientists. And I mean, it's a brand new study, so I don't know if you've seen it, but
yep.
I look at that and say, hey, it's the same trend you see in other application areas within business. It's how do you get that end user to feel more empowered? How do you get them into the driver's seat? How do you get them driving results versus this being an asynchronous effort with IT and folks sort of behind the curtains? It's a pattern that we've already seen in the marketing automation world. It's a pattern that has moved through the CRM world, and those are worlds I'm very familiar with.
Exactly.
But it's interesting to now start to see it come into this world as well.
Yep. Not to forget, there's one important thing that one important piece of the puzzle that's very important is the team that runs your cluster, right? And the skills required is very unique and very special. You have 2 options: either you go out in the market, hire them, or you develop them in-house. Developing in-house is something that is your best bet. Now, the Hadoop requires a good, sharp learning curve. The low-level APIs and number of different components and ecosystems inside the Hadoop ecosystem, that can be a daunting task for a new user. But over the years, if you see the pattern, people coming from the DevOps background who are pretty sharp in managing systems and distributed systems, they can help the enterprise gain that skills in faster amount of time that I have seen, and that's one of the important messages I try to give them when it comes to knowledge transfer and understanding systems, how fast and what's the best way for you to understand a Hadoop distributed cluster.
Definitely. Well, you're doing great work out there, and we're happy to see more and more customers being able to appreciate and users being able to appreciate this technology. And it's really great work that you and organizations like yourself are doing out there. So I want to thank you for joining us today. This has been a great conversation. I hope everybody on the podcast here has enjoyed it. Just as a message out to everyone here, get involved with ODPi. We have a lot of great things going on. You can read about the specifications we have and the project itself on GitHub. If you're a user of Hadoop and big data, I invite you to take a look at our user advisory board and help discuss with other leaders in major corporations across industries that are running into the same issues, but also seeing the same opportunities for these technologies. And look to join ODPi as a member to help support this effort and put your pledge towards ensuring that this big data ecosystem is, you having a stake in it from a shared R&D perspective, but also that this is a sustainable long-term area of investment for organizations worldwide. So Gagan, thank you so much for your time today. This has been great.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure discussing the Hadoop challenges we have. And I really hope ODPi is definitely doing a great job, and we will see a lot of more improvements coming in the future.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much. Thank you, everyone, for joining us on the podcast, and we'll talk to you next time for episode 4.